You want some bad news, Michael?
No.
What are you asking me?
You're the guru of the gray matter. I figured if anybody had it, you'd have the answer.
I can't give you any direction.
I think I'm going to have to change this channel. I'm sorry.
You're completely wrong.
I refuse to be wrong on 2 calls in a row.
Tell me I'm spot on or tell me I'm crazy as I'll get out.
I have no idea.
I have a 6-month-old, so we'll be raising him according to Dr. Ray.
Talk about being a winner.
So, you want my question?
You ain't making any sense.
You're absolutely right. I just needed confirmation.
So what are you going to do about it, Dawn?
I'm calling you.
Now, from the studios of Living Bread Radio Network in Canton, Ohio, the hometown of Mother Angelica, here's Dr. Ray.
Well, I got a new new book coming out in my trilogy. My trilogy on humility. The first book was Humility for Fun and Profit. The second book was my Advanced Humility. And the third is an autobiography of my life of meekness. So we got those things coming up. Actually, to tell you the truth, I do have a new book out. Just came out now. Believe it or not, I'm not making this up. How to Get Along with Almost Everybody. Just came out about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. Don't have it up on the website yet, but you can get it through EWTN. Why do I put the almost in there? Have to. You can't get along with everybody if they don't want to. However, there's a lot we can do to get along better with most people. And I think I share maybe, 30, 40 different ideas, techniques, strategies to at least ease the difficulty of getting along with some people. So I'll talk about that a little more down the road here, but it's called How to Get Along with Almost Everybody. I learned the secret to writing a lot of books, by the way. You can't worry about them being very good. All right. Nice to have you with me. This is a call-in program. I get a lot of emails from, HR people and agents. This is a person you want to interview. This is somebody you want to talk to. This is a book they've got out. That may be, but you're my guests. You're the people I sort of interview anywhere between 3 and 8 minutes. And I like talking to you. I want to find out what's going on in your life. Maybe putting our heads together, we can do something about it. Or at least nudge you in a particular direction. Sometimes all it takes is just to veer a little bit off course. You know, they say that if you're trying to land a Voyager on Jupiter and you're off by 1/1000th of 1 degree, you're going to miss Jupiter by hundreds, thousands of miles, maybe more. So maybe if we can nudge you by 1 degree in a different direction, by the time you get to where you want to go, which is maybe to have a better relationship with that person or whatever it might be to lower your stress level, you'd be on target. So the number to talk to Eric Dumont, who is my call screamer there in Ave Maria Radio, is 877-573-7825. That's not an easy number to remember. So try this, 877-57-EQUAL. 877-57-EQUAL. That's the number to call to get onto the program. 3 main reasons. Usually a situation, a circumstance in your life. Another one would be you want to comment to help somebody else out. We get a lot of that. Folks will call in with certain situations, and people will call in with some great stuff. And then also just kind of, actually 4 reasons to call. A generic question about something you don't understand in the world of psychology or mental health or emotions or intelligence or behavior. See what we can do about that as it intersects with the culture at large. And then if you have some insight that you just want to share. Get a lot of people sending me emails. I'm sorry, that's gender assuming on that communication. E-persons that talk about, you had a caller, tell the caller this. The only problem with that is, of course, we don't know where the callers are coming from, and we can't get a hold of them, but usually some pretty good ideas there. So let me give you the number again, 877-57-EQUAL. Very much want to hear from you. You folks make the show. I've been asked, what is one of the more stressful aspects of being a father? Is it that you hope and pray your children go in the right direction? Oh yeah, that's definitely that's a big one. Is it the day-to-day circumstances of raising children that are only partially socialized, partially moralized, especially when they're younger? Yeah, that's one. Sure, yeah. But that, for me, was probably not the biggest stressor. I can roll with some of that stuff. Biggest stressor for me, and this was particularly intense, when our 10 kids were all under 12. 12, 11, 10, 10, 9, 7, 4, 3, 2, baby. Biggest stressor. Something as a father that I struggled to adapt to float with. Biggest stressor. Little kid jokes. That's right. Hey, Dad. What is it, Andrew? Dad. I got something here funny. It's really funny. Okay, what is it, buddy? Okay. Okay. So, what do you? This is really funny. Are you sitting down? No, I just stand here and listen to you, buddy. It's okay. Go ahead. What's your joke? My joke. I have a joke. Yeah, I got a joke. All right. What do you call? What do you call? Now, the rule of listening to a little kid joke: you do not interrupt, and you do not redirect them. You don't say, helping them along, what is it, son? What do you call what? Now they're starting over. That's not what you want. What do you call a fish? Now, trying to help, I say, what do you call a fish? Well, not really a fish. Not really a fish. It's a kind of fish. It's a kind of fish. Okay, what do you call a kind of fish? I'm doing everything I can here because I got to be on the air in an hour and a half, and this joke started at 11:30 Eastern Time. What do you call a fish that lives in the ocean and has two legs? Now you have to ask back. I don't know. What do you call a fish that lives in the ocean and has two legs? The part about that laugh, see, is the laugh is kind of drawn out. It's sort of it's a combination between a whine and a happy sound. And you finally get to the punchline 12, 13 minutes later. And by this time, I'm twitching. There's no doubt I'm twitching. A toony fish, and then they just go crazy. Now, the worst of little kid jokes is knock-knock jokes. Knock-knock. Who's there? Me. Me who? It's me. And then you're supposed to laugh. I mean, obviously, that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to kind of feed their self-image. But I'm not so sure I want to feed their self-image for jokes that bad. That's like moms at Little League games. When the 7-year-old kid swings at a ball that's 2 feet over his head, and his bat is perpendicular to the ground as he swats at this ball, Not even close to the strike zone. And moms yell, good swing, good try. And I want to say, no, don't tell him that. Don't tell him that. It was not a good swing. It was not a good try. You don't want him swinging at pitches like that. That thing wasn't even remotely. As a matter of fact, not only was it not in the strike zone, it wasn't even in the batter's box. It was 4 feet up the line. But you can't say that. So as a father, I just sit there. And you know what I do? After her kid is done swinging at pitches 4 feet over his head, I tell her a knock-knock joke. 877-573-7825. 877-57-EQUAL. That's the number to call to get onto the program. I'm Dr. Ray.
The Heart of the Interior Life with Elizabeth Jingle.
What is spiritual consolation? In St. Ignatius of Loyola's 14 Rules for the Discernment of Spirits, St. Ignatius describes spiritual consolation. He offers 5 different descriptions of how God's love is made manifest in the human heart through spiritual consolation. Father Timothy Gallagher defines spiritual consolation as happy, uplifting movements of the heart directly impacting our life of faith and our following of God's will. There are many non-spiritual consolations found within the human experience, such as a beautiful sunset or a conversation with a good friend that brings an uplift of heart. St. Ignatius is directing us to notice our experiences of specifically spiritual consolation, those happy uplifts of heart that have to do with our life of faith and the pursuit of God's will in our lives. Have you experienced a gift of spiritual consolation today?
For more information, visit AveMariaRadio.net.
Love makes the world go round, songwriters tell us. But there is a greater love than mere romantic love. The theological virtue of love, called charity, means we love God above all things for His own sake, just because He's God and infinitely lovable. We love our neighbor as ourselves because we love God, and He desires us to love our neighbor. The Catholic Catechism tells us that Jesus makes charity the new commandment. By loving His own to the end, He renders the Father's love, which He receives, visible. While we were yet in our sins, and as such His enemies, Christ died out of love for us. He asks us to love as He does. Love even our enemies. Make even those far from us our neighbors. Love children and the poor as Christ Himself. This is Peggy Stanton, and this has been the Order of Malta's Minute with the Catechism.
What happened to Kelly? Kelly's gone. That was quick. Always am mystified when somebody calls, and then before I even take them on the air, they're gone. Usually that's some kind of cell phone thing. Got to say this. Congratulations. Another long-time EWTN radio partner, Siouxland. It makes me nervous to say that, but okay. Siouxland Catholic Radio. Got 2 stations. Sioux City, I was there. Spoke to those folks. Sioux City, so I just went in and said, okay, if I slip and fall, Sioux City's a great place to do it. And Storm Lake, Iowa, 17 years. 17 years. Ann Reed and all the whole team there at Siouxland Catholic Radio, from all of us here at EWTN. And another live read, Catholics, Coast to Coast. It's on Saturday afternoons, 2 o'clock Eastern, and Sunday night, 6 Eastern, on EWTN Radio. That's a weekly look at some of the best Catholic podcasts from across America. That is cool. All available on EWTN's Podcast Central. And that is hosted by, and I've made this comment before, his name there at EWTN, Ace McKay. Boy, you hear something like that, don't you think back like 1970s? Ace McKay, special agent. Ace McKay. Now, Kelly called. She's got a family member who gets very angry, takes it out on his wife, emotionally. All right. So she says, how do you deal with this situation? Now, is the question, I'll see if Kelly were talking to me, is the question, Kelly saying, how do I deal with the fact that this is going on? Now, my guess would be this family member is probably a sibling or an in-law. How do I deal with that situation? Well, I don't know, because I really don't know what influence you have. I don't know if the person who's getting emotionally attacked comes to you and asks you for your guidance. I don't know that. I don't know if they're private about it. Now, if you're asking, how do you help them? This is where it is easy to be misunderstood. Talked with Teresa Tomeo today. We talked a little bit about this. For someone to distress you, greatly distress you with their words or their emotions, in most cases, you've got to give them that power. And I know that sounds funny. Thinking, no, Dr. Ray, those things hurt. Those things still hurt. Whatever someone says to you, in this case he gets very angry and he probably says all kinds of snotty, awful things. Now, you say, well, you shouldn't do that. Yes, that's right, he shouldn't do that. But here's the problem. He is doing it. So given that, how much is this going to affect the spouse, the wife? You know, after a while, and I see that you get like that, I can be upset because I'm not in a marriage that I thought I would be in. I understand that. But the idea that you're going to make me feel awful and terrible about myself because you say stupid, illegitimate things is going to lose its power. You're spending down all of your income because you're losing it. You can't keep doing this and expect it to still have the same impact. Now, I'm going to go to the calls here in a second, but I see this so very much. One of the things about being, having some small profile, which is through the radio or the television or more often Facebook and Instagram, people say really nasty things about you. Oh, my gosh. Especially if you talk religion. They attack. Nasty, nasty stuff. Now, that doesn't bother me one whit. Dr. Ray, you don't live with them, and you're not related to them. That's true. That is true. But I also do not give them the power to make me feel bad about myself. If you're living with somebody that does that, at some point, you may not be able to stop them from doing that. But at some point, they should just simply have lost much of the ability to make you feel terrible. They should. You know, here you go again. Are you done? Well, I'll talk some more about that. But Anna from Wisconsin is waiting patiently. Hi, Anna.
Hi.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you for taking my call. I just never thought I would call your show, but here I am.
Well, I didn't think you would either, Anna, and I was wondering. I've been wondering for a couple of years, when's Anna going to call? You never have, and I asked Eric, has Anna called yet? And I've asked that in the past shows. He goes, no, haven't heard from her.
Well, today is the day.
All righty.
So I have a situation at home where we have a 8th grader that is currently in a Catholic school, and we're discerning how to, choices for high school, and there's a private and a public, and we kind of did our pros and cons, and my husband is very strong in the public, and I had a lot of concerns in public. My son is kind of divided because he feels like, okay, Mom wants one thing, Dad wants another thing. So it's been a long, long haul. And the more I pray, the worse it gets. So
well, my dear, what?
Said, I can't convince you, and I feel like I put the facts, and I can't get into his mind. So at this point where my son is kind of looking at both, and he's going to tell us what he wants to do, where he would like to go. But my husband is more like, I'm absolutely not supporting going to private school. So
he's pretty definite about that, huh?
Yes.
Ooh.
And his point of view in a nutshell is that the public school, he will have a chance to play sports, and by playing sports, he will go to school and he would be a good kid. If he goes to private, in his opinion, every kid is entitled, and then sports are too tough. He won't make the team because we're not rich, so then he's going to do drugs, and that's his opinion. And I cannot get him out of that mindset.
Yeah, if he's clinging to that mindset, you're not going to be able to give him reasons that would be stronger than that. If he thinks his kid's going to just go downhill if he goes to a Catholic school because he thinks that Catholic schools are now just for rich kids, it's not really the case anymore because in Ohio, for example, there's a lot of school choice, and a lot of the Catholic schools have kids there on school choice scholarships. All right, so let's look at this.
Yes.
All right. First of all, I saw you. Well, I didn't see you. I heard you. I heard you tearing up. And for you, Anna, this isn't something necessarily to tear up over because you really don't know how it's going to unfold. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
Your husband doesn't want him to go to Catholic school because he doesn't think the school's all that Catholic. He just thinks it's kind of a private school with a lot of uppity kids. That's what he thinks.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. In the public school, now, of course, you're going to lose pretty much any ability to talk about God, any ability to have religion class. I guess I will say this, though, Anna. I had a priest friend, and he maintained this. Now, I'm not saying this is true, but I can see his thinking. He said, send your kids to Catholic elementary school, but be very cautious about sending them to Catholic high school. What he was speaking to was the sad state where a lot of Catholic high schools are really not all that Catholic anymore. They're just kind of like private schools with a little bit of religion painted over top. Now, there's some real good Catholic schools out there, and only you know where they are in your area, or if they are in your area. Only you know that. I don't know that. If your husband, here's the problem you have. If your husband is absolutely dead set, no maneuvering, no wiggle room, nothing about him going anywhere but the public school, you and your son are kind of stuck.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. It doesn't sound like your husband's going to say, "Well, okay, I don't want him to go to Catholic school, but he just told me he wants to go to Catholic school, so that's okay." I mean, would he do that?
That's what I'm struggling, trying to say, hey, I'm willing to look at opportunities and what the public school can do and make him go to college and all those objectives we have. Why can't you do the same? But you're absolutely right. He's not. Okay. He's saying everybody's going to be unhappy if he doesn't go where I want him to go.
All right.
Which I don't think is fair for...
Well, again, you're right. You'd like him to be more reasonable about it, but he's not. Okay, so do this. Compromise. Tell your husband, all right, public school it is. However, will you agree to me that if he starts having any kind of trouble and he starts getting very, very heavily culturally shaped, we will rethink this. If you can get your husband to agree to that, that might be the way to go. This is Dr. Ray. Boy, that guy's hands are fast. Hammond A100, which is really a B3, but with a self-contained speaker. Let's see what I got coming up here. Oklahoma Catholic Radio, this Friday, day after tomorrow. Getting to Ask the Fathers fundraiser. Get a chance to do a little bit of talking, a little bit of emceeing. You know, I should have charged Jeff Fennell a little extra. I didn't know he wanted me to MC too. Well, I'm going to let him get away with it this time, but it better not happen again, Jeff. And then from there, I come back into Cleveland, and we got Waterford, Michigan, Our Lady of the Lakes. Joyful Journey, talking about marriage. So I'll be there on Saturday night. It's like $15. I didn't realize I was that cheap. And that includes babysitting. Are you kidding me? If you went to something like this, typically 3 hours with the dinner and the mass and everything, and you had a couple of little kids, and you left them with a babysitter, that cost you $34. I don't know what babysitters go for now. Probably $40 an hour plus benefits, something like that. So that's a pretty good deal. Pretty good deal. And the only weak spot is a speaker, which is me. 877-573-7825. That's the number to call to get onto the program. Definitely want to hear from you. Bottom half of the show. Some people say I'm the bottom half of the show. But I want to hear from you. Please call in so we can talk a little bit. And I will wait to see what the lines show up here. Talk to Eric Dumont. He is the call screamer there. This program is a co-production of the EWTN Global Catholic. It is global, too. About 500 stations worldwide. Network and Ave Maria Radio Communications, who produces a show out of Ann Arbor. Okay, I did mention new book just released. How to Get Along with Almost, I had a little caret put in that title, almost everybody. And in the book, I talk about the things we do that can sabotage a relationship or make a relationship more difficult, the things we can do for ourselves to not be so upset or distressed with certain difficult people, and typically the people we like, people that are easy to relate to, you don't really have to work that hard to get along with them. But it's those folks in your life, and generally it's the folks in your closest social circle that create distress for you. And sadly, sometimes it's a spouse, an adult child, a sibling, grown sibling, a parent. And what do? How do you get along with them? You don't really want to cut them out of your life. I mean, it's got to be pretty serious to cut out a close relative. It does. It's got to be a situation where there is threat. Now, some say, well, there can be emotional threat. Well, again, I talk about that in the book, too. I talk about the overuse of the word emotional abuse. Because somebody can try to emotionally make you feel awful, but you got to cooperate with them. You got to give them that power. Whatever they're going to say, if it's not true, if it's just nasty and it's coming out of their own insecurity or mean-spiritedness or whatever it is, you don't have to absorb it. To the degree you absorb it, you're going to feel mistreated. So I talk about that in the very earliest chapters of the book. And then I go on. And I talk about all the ways that you can be more appealing to other people. I talk about easygoingness. I talk about unoffendability. I talk about being careful with snarky remarks. Boy, does a snarky remark set a tone for a relationship. One of you calls this program, and I am patient, understanding, empathetic, nurturant, kind, true blue. But at the end of your call, I say something akin to, well, I'll tell you what, given what you sounded like, I don't expect that problem's ever going to be solved because you're involved in it. Now, I'll tell you, that person, rightfully so, would never call back here, and they may even complain to whoever they can complain to. But I gave them all kinds of decent advice the first 6 minutes, but then I snarked. Snarks undo relationships. And I talk about that. I talk about the power of a snark to undo a relationship. I talk about what we call constructive criticism. Constructive criticism all too often means, I'm going to tell you what's wrong with you. And I'm telling you that for your own good, you know. All too often, that's the danger in constructive criticism. Had a situation, talk about this in the book too, where I was on the road, and the guy was behind me, and I didn't move through the light as fast as he wanted me to. And he just leaned on his horn, and I made a turn, and he roared around me. I mean, he just roared around me, glaring at me the whole way. Now, my instinct was, what is with him? And my baser instinct was to pull up behind him at the light. I'm not going to do that. That's foolish. It's dumb. But then I started thinking, I wonder how that guy lives life. If he can get that distressed over somebody who didn't start out at the light as quick as he wanted him to. I wasn't texting. What's his life like? How does he deal with normal stress? That shouldn't have been anything that should have aroused that kind of anger in him. Well, Dr. Ray, you don't know what kind of day he's having. Dr. Ray, you don't know what struggles he's dealing with in his life. Dr. Ray, you don't know how he's just on it. You're right, I don't. But I still think that you can make a case that if he gets that upset over something that small, how he must struggle emotionally in life. Because we all have stuff that we have to deal with. So I talk about those things in the book. Now, you can get that, of course, through the EWTN catalog. You can get it at my website. Well, we haven't really put it up on my website yet. That's usually where we sign the books there. They're signed. Well, not by me, by one of my kids, but you don't know that. No, they're signed by me. All right, so how to get along with almost everybody. I would suggest a book if you got an almost everybody in your life. Because sometimes, believe it or not, you can get along with somebody that you thought you never could. You can do that. You got a lot of power in your hands. 877-57-EQUAL, that is the number to call to get onto the program. You want to call and say, Dr. Ray, how do I get along with? I'll talk to you. I'll say, buy the book. One of my most touching songs is the Song of St. Francis. And there's a line in it that says, Lord, and it doesn't say Lord, but I'll put that in there. May I seek not to be understood so much as to understand. And I think Teresa from Pennsylvania is struggling with that whole idea because she could have easily been misinterpreted, her actions, by a whole lot of people. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Dr. Ray.
Your brother's son was how old?
He was 26.
Oh, accident,
yeah,
overdose, suicide?
No, it was... he was working at a restaurant, and apparently he and this other employee both liked the same girl, and the employee came in and shot my nephew and accidentally wounded one other person, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I only met my nephew at my mom's funeral a few years ago because I had talked to you a few years ago about my brother having a wedding. I wasn't invited. He had been estranged from the family. I'm the only one he's still estranged with, but nobody will tell me why. And you gave me the great advice of, like, you can't make him tell you anything. And, you know, like, and I'm like, whoa, you know, you were obviously so right. But so I've been using that. So over the years when I was sitting at my mom's bedside as she was dying and he would come in and, you know, there would be tension, I was just like, just let it go, just let it go. You're here for Mom. But now my sister lives in the same town as I was. I was visiting my daughter when this happened, so I was just like calling and like, have we heard anything? The name of the funeral home, like, what can I do? And at first they were acting like, oh, well, we're not going to go and blah, blah, blah. My sister had just had surgery done and all this stuff. And then on the day before the funeral, I called them, and they're on their way to North Carolina for the funeral. So now I've kind of been avoiding, like my sister and I live in a small town, like, I know people are going to, that she knows, I'm sure she told them that he died, or maybe she didn't, I don't know, because she won't talk to me about it. But, like, what if somebody comes up and says, oh, I'm sorry about your nephew, or how was the funeral? And then what do I say? Like, oh, well, my sisters bailed on me, they didn't let me go.
No, Tracy, you don't have to say that. You simply say, how was the funeral? Well, if they say, how was the funeral, you simply say, I don't know, I wasn't able to make the funeral. There you go.
Yeah, but then I feel like a jerk for not going to my nephew's funeral. My gosh, I would have gone.
Well, hold on a second. I was going to say, as I was looking at this on the computer board here, I was thinking, all right, I'm going to talk to Teresa about not taking this personal. But it does sound like, you tell me if I'm wrong, because sometimes women are very good at telling me I'm wrong. It does sound like he didn't want you there.
That's probably right.
Because right now you're still the one that he doesn't have much contact with, right?
Right. Yes, that is true.
It's really hard to know sometimes why someone doesn't want you in their lives. If they don't tell you, if their attitude is, you don't need to know, all you need to know is I don't want you around, you're stuck.
Right.
You're stuck.
Right.
I see a lot of, and I don't know if this is your situation, Teresa, but I see a lot of situations where people don't want religious people around. Religious people bug them. Brothers.
I am probably the most, I'm probably the most religious person in my family. I can say that.
And they probably view you as, well, I don't like the way she is, I don't like her morals, I don't like her judgmentalness, I don't like this about her, I don't like that about her. It sounds like, you got two levels to this, Teresa. One is, you can't know for sure, but probably your brother deliberately didn't invite you. Okay, there's one.
Right.
The second level is, you don't have to be ashamed that you didn't go. Not at all. And if somebody says, well, what kind of jerk are you? You didn't go to your nephew's funeral who was tragically murdered.
I know. It was like all over the news. It was awful.
Yeah. You simply say, I just didn't have the chance to go, or I couldn't go. Now, if they think that, well, what's with you? Well, then they got a problem.
Right.
You can't do anything about what they're going to interpret.
That's true.
You don't have to worry about it.
What hurts me is my sisters would just come right out and say.
No, you know why they didn't? Here's my guess. You know why they didn't? Because they didn't want to tell you that they were invited and you weren't. So they tried to massage it. They tried to say, well, yeah, I don't know if we can go either. And then they knew they were going to go. But they just figured, okay, well, let's just not tell Teresa she wasn't invited, but we were. Or known, deliberately contacted, but we were. Yeah, that's what they did. You know, that's probably what it was.
And, you know, there's a big age difference between my sisters and my brother. My brother and I are closer in age. We were adopted, and my mom had 2 biological children later. So it's almost like, I feel like almost like we're like in a divorced parent situation, like he's the Disney dad and he can do no wrong, and I'm the one who, like, I don't know, I follow the rules or whatever. I don't know. I just feel like, why can't they say, hey, we're going down to Mark's? Like, I don't get mad at them for it.
Why can't they say that? Because they didn't think that was the way they wanted to handle it. In their mind, they thought it was easier, and for the moment, they ducked the conflict by simply saying, well, we are not sure we're gone either, and then you wouldn't feel quite so bad because, see, they're not gone either, so if anybody says, well, why didn't you go? Well, your sisters didn't go either, so you're not the only one. But they knew they were going to go, and they just kind of just hoped you didn't discover it.
I know, but okay, so I wasn't invited to the wedding how many years ago, and I was upset about it because I'm always the one who's like, it's my fault that we don't talk, whatever. It's always my fault. I don't even have his phone number, but whatever. So then, like 2 years after the wedding, my sisters like gaslight me by saying, oh, you know, that's so awful that your invitation to the wedding was lost. I'm like, what? And now they're trying to act like I was invited to the wedding, but my invitation, I mean, it's just like, it's always going on.
I don't think anybody wants to.
Hurtful.
No, be careful. You decide how much it's going to hurt.
Okay.
You realize they're probably saying, Teresa, we really, you're for whatever it is about you, your personality, your religion, whatever, our brother doesn't like it. Some other people might absolutely adore the way you are. But for whatever it is about him, he's saying, nope, I don't have much use for my sister and a lot of reasons. That doesn't mean he's right. He could be a jerk. But it means that's how he thinks. So if he does, not a whole lot you can do about that. What are you going to do?
Right.
So,
I don't know.
All righty, my dear. I got to run. I'm way past break, honey. I got to run. Do not make excuses. Just simply say, I wanted to go, but I couldn't make it.
Beckway Door is a top provider of garage doors as well as home entry, patio, and storm doors. Locally owned since 1978, we give free, no-pressure quotes at prices 20% lower than most competitors, and often provide same-day service for garage door repairs. Mention Ave Maria Radio for 10% off the replacement or service of your garage door or the installation of new exterior doors. Visit BeckwayDoor.com. That's BeckwayDoor.com.
Food for the Journey's Sister Ann Shield.
Open your hearts to the way in which God wants to shepherd you. By daily prayer, you learn to hear His voice, and He will shepherd you, and then you're going to be in a position to help others draw near to the Good Shepherd. But we need to learn how to hear His voice, and part of the way we do that is by reading Scripture every day until we begin to see what God's priorities are, and we make those priorities our own. We repent from the ways and the times in which we just want to do our own will, and we truly more and more are converted that we want God's will, God's way, God's timing. And when the Good Shepherd really leads our lives, then we're in a position to hear His voice more because our lives are converted. They're shaped by His priorities. And so that enables us to hear the voice of truth much more clearly and the voice of love much more clearly. As we give up our selfishness, we are drawn into truly intimate union with Him. May God give you that grace.
Food for the Journey with Sister Ann Shields can be now heard on the audio archives page at AveMariaRadio.net.
Well, now that was a switch there, Andrew. Would you decide you didn't like that one music? That's a cop show music right there. Just picture some guy running along and jumping into this little car that's a convertible, and he doesn't even bother to open the door. Just hoists himself over into the driver's seat. Yeah, the cop shows, they always had really tough-sounding names, you know, Magnum P.I., Rockford Files. Every once in a while, you just, I don't know, Percival Smith, Private Investigator. I don't know if that would have the same impact. Teresa from Oregon, has an adult son who's heavy. Hi, Teresa.
Hello, Dr. Ray. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome. How is he live in your home?
Oh, no. He has a family, and he has 5 children, and obviously under a lot of stress. The kids' ages are like 11 and under. So, he's a busy dad. So.
Well, he's a busy dad, but how biggy a dad is he?
Well, he, wears like size 3X clothes or something like that. And I don't know. I'm concerned, with the whole issue of health and heart attacks and that sort of thing.
You think his wife has the same concern that you do?
I don't know what the future's going to bring.
You think his wife has the same concern that you do?
His wife actually is thin, and I'm sure that she's concerned too, but I don't know. I haven't really talked to her about it.
What makes you think you'd have influence on him?
Well, because I'm his mom.
Does he listen to you?
Sometimes. He's an adult. He makes his own decisions and choices, so.
I know what you're saying. You're saying he's got 5 little kids, and is he continuing to gain weight? I mean, he's becoming, 280, 290, 300, 310. Mm-hmm. Has that been the trajectory?
He was, sometimes overweight when he was younger, but then he was also in sports, and so he kind of controlled it that way. But, it's been, slightly before he got married, and now that he's married, he's just, his weight just keeps on creeping up there, and I'm concerned. So.
Well, I understand that. I would understand you would be concerned. I had a daughter. We were so worried about her, we couldn't stop her. At some point, then she lost 220 pounds, which is one heck of a lot of weight to lose. You got to gauge this, Teresa. How you want to approach it. You know the relationship you have with your son. That if you sit with him and you say, son, I'm worried. You're a great daddy, and you got 5 little ones who want their daddy around as long as they can. You think that your weight is going to cause problems for you? Now, he already knows that, by the way, and I'm sure his wife has done everything in her power to check, especially if she's slimmer and trying to stay fit and works out and whatever she does. So I'm sure he's heard all this. But if you think you want to make one more try at it just to soothe your own conscience that I said something, you can. But you'll be ready for how it'll be taken. Mom, I know. Mom, I don't need to hear it. Or, well, Mom, I know, you're right. I'm going to try to do something about it. You don't know. You don't know how he's going to react. And you're saying to me, really, is how do I say it to my son so that it actually motivates him? Well, I'll tell you this. Especially with someone who over years gains more and more weight and more and more weight and more and more weight. You want to know a sad statistic here, Teresa? What percentage of people who lose a significant amount of weight keep it off?
I would think it's less than 50%, I would think.
Try 5.
Wow.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I mean, it's very, very hard to get your body mass under control once it gets out of control. Once you're 100, 120 pounds overweight, it is just brutal. Okay? So that's why so many people are heading to these new drugs. I mean, these things are expensive, and who knows what side effects they have, but this is now an absolute phenomenon that these people are taking these drugs, and he may even do that himself. Who knows? Yeah. But nothing's stopping you from sitting down and saying, son, I love you so much, and you got a beautiful family, and you're a great daddy. I just worry. Because weight comes with problems. Mm-hmm. Take it from I really care about you kind of standpoint.
Yeah.
I had some children who let their weight get away from them as they become young adults. Fortunately, most of them have turned it around, but it got pretty rough there for a while. And the interesting thing is they blamed us. One or two of them said, "Well, if you wouldn't have been so caught up when I was gaining weight, that made me feel like oh boy, I'm not satisfied with my daughter or whatever," and that was just such nonsense. But they're going to think what they're going to think. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, dear. Good luck. This is Dr. Ray. Thanks for keeping me company this program. I appreciate it so very much. Good Lord permitting. Get a chance to talk to you tomorrow. Thanks, EWTN. Thanks, Ave Maria. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Andrew. And thank you for staying with me. Walk with God. And it's a lot easier to walk, you know, if you're not carrying a whole lot of extra pounds, too. That's one thing.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.